and once there's usually a little bit of a delay there. Give me 1 sec while we actually go live. I'm gonna hit refresh on my page. Make sure everything is actually working. Beep, boop, beep, boop, 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 beep. Come on. Are we live? Are we live? Yes, we're live. All right. Let me hit the record button. Hit the record button. And okay, we're here. Great, we're live. And thanks everybody. We're back another week, another Tuesday topics. And this is a weekly show we do with members of our company, of our staff, Power ISA. And we talk about questions we've gotten from the audience, interesting topics for people that are interested in the topic of an ISA, how to have success with an ISA. And, it's not just me talking on these. We have members of our team that jump in and help us with any one of these specific topics. We've had folks from our customer care team, from our coaching team, from our sales team. All of them have been around here helping us out. So today we have a new guest. She hadn't been to this, her first Tuesday topics she's joining us for. This is Valeria Rangel. I call her Valerie because that's easier. It rolls off the tongue a little bit easier. Valerie, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of who you are and what have you done here at Power ISA?
Yeah, for sure. Well, my name is Valerie. I prefer Valerie. I think everybody, that's how they talk to me. So I've been in Power ISA, I think now about to be 6 years. And I've been in a few departments, but mostly I've been in the QA department. I think that's where I did the most here in Power ISA. Now I'm part of the management team for sure, but my experience for sure has been more towards quality in general with ISA. So that's what I've been doing here in Power ISA.
I gotcha. And for the people that aren't really sure, because we have a lot of folks that do calling, but people might not be familiar with the quality assurance team. What
quality assurance is.
In a few sentences, tell us what in a quality role, what do you focus on? What do you do? And what are the main areas of focus?
Yeah, I think every company is different for sure. But with us, it was more focused towards the quality of the calls of the ISAs, reviewing the calls, not just reviewing, but having a system so where we can grade the points of improvement, how they're doing, have a percentage, at the end of the day for those ISAs and giving them feedback overall, the good and also points of improvement that they should work on. And that's mostly what we've been doing on our side on quality assurance. Yeah,
absolutely. Love that. So that's great. So, and I think it's really, and I think I'm glad you're here because, in a way, when you're working on quality, I call quality, that's kind of your focus. And, just so you guys know, Valerie, there's a lot of different roles here in the company, but one of them is coaching our ISAs, a large group of ISAs on the topic of quality, how to do a quality call, right? So, so I think, in a way, Valerie, you're always giving people feedback, right?
Yes.
Because, like it or not, quality is about, quality doesn't just focus on all the things you do well, right? Quality focuses on the things that, hey, why don't we do better? All right.
Yeah, for sure.
This kind of work you improve. So it has a lot to do with this topic today, feedback, how to provide feedback to your ISA. You do this on a regular basis. You do it every week with our coaching calls with our ISAs. I think there's like 75 people we're coaching right now this week, in these different courses. So, I mean, there's a lot of folks you give feedback to. Why is this feedback topic so important? And why should people listen in and get better at this? Why do you think?
Yeah, I think mostly it's important, and not just, focus on ISA, but any type of role really, even for 100%. Management, it's always good to let your team know if they're doing good, if there's something that we should change, if there's something that you feel they need to change. And I think sometimes people have a hard time with that because, emotions come in. I don't know how they're going to take it. I don't know if, I don't know what are the right words for it. And it's, it's scary for sure at the beginning as well for me as QA at the beginning. I was like, I don't know how to work this, but, studying and getting into this role as QA, I had to learn different ways of how to get feedback. And I think it's really important even for ISAs, in the real estate business. sometimes they go in and they have a good attitude and yes, I got this. And, and that's always a win. But once they start making calls, that's the real training. That's where I feel like more people should, go into giving them feedback, because that's where, things that we didn't see before, now we get to see them and making those calls, because it's way different from role plays. It's not
completely.
Real scenario. Sure.
I love telling people this story. I'll tell you the story that, when we're, another version of Power ISA, we had, a big call center. We would have training classes every week. We'd have people coming in almost every week, and we would have big training sessions, I think once or twice a month. We would do them sometimes once a month, sometimes twice a month for newbies, right? To train them all classroom training. And at the beginning, we did 1 week of classroom training, which was, scripting, role play, objection handling, shadowing people, and then going back and learning CRMs. It was a week of classroom training in a room, a big training room. It was a big conference room. Everyone would just go in there and just train. And then the second week, they get on the phone. And then one time, I think we were pressed for time. We only had one trainer. It was difficult. We put them on the phone the second day. Okay, we put them on the phone instead of waiting a week. We put them on the phone the second day, and the results were the same. The same. We're like, wait, what? What about all this training, all this role play, and all this rehearsing and writing down the script? What? At the end of the day, since they hadn't been on the phone, again, this is for folks that were, a lot of them brand new to the call center industry, not just real estate. They were brand new to everything, right? So they were new, right? Giving them a week of training versus getting on the phone the second day. It was I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's actually funny because I got trained like that too. I don't know if you remember, but that's how I didn't know much about real estate business. I didn't know, what I know now. And I remember my trainer was like, here's your script. Here's like a small blue book, and start dilating. And I was like, okay. But honestly, that's how I see ISAs. I think they apply better the feedback because they get to hear themselves from the recordings, and have a system of to identify the points of improvement they should change or they should work on. I think it's just easier. I think the role play sometimes gets them a little bit more nervous into the calls, because it's like, oh, with you, it's nice. I mean, yeah, but sometimes we're not always going to find nice, people out there, or not the best scenario. So I think it's really important to get them right away to start making calls, and from there work that feedback, which is really, really important for an ISA for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And, and just getting in there for real, I think is important. But let's get back to the reason you want to get them calling right away, because that's when the learning really starts. And that's where the feedback really starts, right? And that's where you're going to, point them in the right direction. And I always recommend folks to start this right away, because it's really obvious at the beginning what they can do better. In fact, it's even obvious to the ISA. It's even obvious that wow, I could have sounded better than that. But something happens when they're listening to when you're telling someone, hey, can you sound more this way, sound more that way? I mean, they might understand it that way, they might not. But if they listen to themselves on a call and you go, do that, that's really good. Don't do that anymore. That thing you did right there. Stop doing that. Yeah. Right? It's like night and day. It's completely different, the reaction people get. They're like, oh, I know exactly what you mean. I 100% understand. And I totally see how I could have handled that better. This concept of the call review, so important. And people that hire an ISA, they should their ISA should be on the phone, my opinion, by the second day. And they should be getting feedback by the third day on how they did that first day, right?
Yeah. So and also have a weekly or bi-weekly session with their ISAs. For me, especially with my team and the team that I had before with ISAs, it's always like a weekly session, at least 1 hour.
Like a team meeting, a team meeting with your.
Yeah, for sure. So we can sit down, listen to. There's agents that do it daily, which I think it's great. But at least once a week, I think it's a good thing to do, so they can hear the feedback as well, because sometimes even the ISA is like, I don't know, am I doing great, am I not? Even in these sessions that I have every Thursday, I review calls with them, and they're like, well, I think the ISA did good, they sound good. yeah, they sound good, but there's things that we could, improve and change. And that's when they start understanding, the things of quality. It's not just about your voice. It's about how you give customer service, how you apply, the system that we have that are the QA behavior. So yeah, for sure. I think that's
100%. I think that's so important. And Valerie, why do you think agents struggle with this so much? Why do you think agents struggle with this? Because a lot of issues you can have later on with your ISA, in my opinion, is just kind of a failure to provide timely and accurate feedback to the ISA. Yeah. Why do you think people struggle with that communication?
I think there's two. I think one is the how are they going to react? I think that's something even for me, that's how I started. It's like,
some fear.
I get this feedback, what's the outcome of that? What, like, are they going to leave? Are they going to be upset? And which is a normal thing to think of. It happened to me the first years, but now it's like, okay, I know how to approach and how to give that feedback. And the other, I just think like sometimes we need to coach ourselves in how, even though sometimes it could be like really, really strong feedback, not necessarily bad, but a few things to change. We need to know how to insert and how to say things to avoid that part of the fear, right? Of like, what are they going to say? Or are they going to be upset? And I always say, like, I think those that like have a big team, managers, CEOs, shouldn't be shouldn't have that fear to tell them, because at the end that's what helped them. That's what I tell the team of ISAs, like, hey, I'm giving you this feedback to help you out, and because I've been listening to a few calls, I've already worked with different ISAs, and I'm just trying to help you, and again, you're doing great, but we can change a few things here and there. And that's where like, okay, awesome, okay, great. And they always take it, most of them, I would say 98% take it in a good way, yeah. The other 2%, sometimes is the emotions that come in. But I think for sure we shouldn't be afraid, or have that fear to say things, and coach ourselves in how to say them, and be direct. I think sometimes people were not so used to being, direct with people. Yeah. For me as QA, that's even my personality. I can be straightforward with someone, and I don't feel, as scared or afraid to say something. But that's just me. There's people that maybe are more like bubbly personality. And they're like, no, I don't want to do that. But it's a normal thing. So I think for sure that could be one of those things.
I think you're right. I think people, they're not sure how the other person's going to react, or you know what? They might have even had a bad experience in the past, right? They had a bad boss, and they felt, berated by the boss. And I hear this phrase a lot from agents. They go, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy or that girl. I don't want to be that guy where, it's always on people, the micromanager.
Yeah.
And I tell folks, number one, like what you just said, I like the way you phrased it. You got to coach yourself, right? Coach yourself and change that mindset and go, hey, you're only telling them this because you want them to succeed. Right? Yeah, I want you to succeed. And it starts with a standard, right? You got to have some kind of, if there's no standard on your team, what feedback are you going to really give?
Yeah, for sure.
Feedback. If there's no standard to hold people accountable to, then you're just giving feedback on style points, right? Like, you could have done that. That doesn't sound so good. You can sound better. What? If it's not towards a goal, some kind of goal, and you've got to hold people accountable to that goal. And the feedback is to get them closer to that goal. And that goal can be, again, this depends on the type of ISA, type of campaign. It can be a certain number of appointments per week. If it's cold calling, a number of nurtures, qualified sellers you get per week. I mean, it depends, right? Live transfers, whatever the goal happens to be, the feedback is so that they can reach that goal, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like as a team, that's how I show it to the ISAs. We're a team. We're here to help you out. Not just for me that I'm giving sessions every Thursday. For Temo that also gives sessions on Friday, and for the coaches, we always tell them, we're just trying to help you out so you can succeed and what goal you have. So yeah, I think it's just to coach ourselves. For me, it happened to everyone. I think everybody had that situation, right? Where where the outcome maybe was not the best, but I think we learned from that. And then that's how we, you know, work with the people that come in after, and now we know what to do and what not to say or how to say it. So that's how I learned. I had to coach a lot myself in the 6 years of Power ISA, for sure, with my supervisors, with you, with in general, with all the team, and that helping, you know. And I always give feedback to a lot of people, not just ISAs, but even within my team of management, we also have to give that feedback in, and they take it as in a good way. You know, I never had comments of, you know, I don't know, I don't like this feedback, Valerie, or, you know, I don't like what you're saying. I think they understand what the goal is. I always try to tell them where we're trying to succeed and what the goal is for our department, or, you know, whatever. And they understand it, and they take it as good feedback. They never see it as, you know, ISA sometimes say like, oh, it's bad feedback, but how I see it, there's never bad feedback. It's always points of improvement and things that we could do better, for sure. But there's never bad feedback, because
I think that's a good way to say it, because I think some people really see it that way, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I love giving feedback when it's good stuff. Oh, you did great. That's good. I give feedback. Well, you know, feedback can go both ways, right? The goal is always to get you to succeed and get you to accomplish the goal. And sometimes that means calling out things you did wrong, right? And I think people kind of can really struggle with that specific part of it. How do you recommend people? Let's give people a really specific example, right? You're listening to those calls, right? And the ISA is making some mistakes. So let's give people an example. This is a really common objection right now, right? This is a very common objection around the uncertainty in the market. You know what? I just want to wait a little bit. I'm not sure what's going on. There's a timing the market objection, right? There's timing the market objection. And if they've been to coaching sessions, if they've been working with their agents, that's a really common objection right now. You can't just give up on that, right? Yeah. But if the ISA is giving up too soon, or just kind of giving up with that objection, you got to let them know, right? So Valerie, how would you deliver that feedback to someone when they've got an objection that they should know the objection handler for? They should know how to handle that. But on the recording, when it was on the line, in the line of fire, in live fire, real time, real talk, they weren't able to handle it. They shied away. They kind of gave up on the call. How would you give that feedback to someone that made that call? They just listened to themselves. They're hearing it. There's no way around this, right? And they probably should have known better. How do you give that feedback to someone?
Yeah. One thing I do is for sure ask how they felt. You know, tell me, what do you think about this call?
How do you think? Because it might be obvious to them. It might be obvious. I mean, of course, I messed up on that call.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one trick I learned for sure. It's asking really them first their point of view and what they think of the call, and then I'll help them out to see if they didn't. Let's say that this, you know, ISA said, well, I did great, because there's sometimes that could happen, right?
Like, now we agree that there's a problem here. Now we agree.
Yeah,
good.
And I always ask them, okay, so first, for my team specifically, any type of objection, I have them write it down. You know, even though some ISA say like, hey, I already know it, you know, it's right here in my head. Okay, yes, that's good, you know, but help me write it down. I want to see that in paper, just so you make sure you have it, you know, right your sticky notes on your wall, wherever you want it, just to make sure that you have it, you know, right there. And ask them why they didn't, you know, if you do know that answer of that objection, what happened there? How did you feel, or why it didn't come up, right? And sometimes they say, you know what, I just forgot. Which is, it happens, right? And I totally understand that. You know, let's do a quick role play just to make sure that, you know, you got this, and have a similar scenario of the call and put it in practice right away. I think it's to listen and to make them identify the point of improvement that they should work on, and then practice. And then from those calls, you know, after that, see if they are applying it. And that's how a feedback works. It doesn't end there. It's continuous and continuous.
And I love how you, again, spoken like a pro, right? That you should listen to the call, right? Listen to the issue.
Yeah.
I love that point. You got to ask them, okay, what did you think about that call? How do you think that went? Right. And, you know, not, you know, when people do this, don't like, you know, like give it away, right? Like, oh my God, this is the worst call ever. No, like just ask them an honest question. Well, how do you think that went? Or I sometimes even ask, how do you think that could have gone better? Or could you think that could have gone better? And almost kind of like asking, like, come on, can you find an issue here? Or are you really clueless? Maybe they are.
Yeah.
I don't know, right? Yeah, again, just how much education do we have to do at that point, right?
Yeah.
And then you get into it, right? Give them the specific thing they should do different. And I love that. Put it into practice right then and there, right? Because they might already know the answer, right? They might already know the answer. Let me just put it into practice. If they have no clue, okay, let's go back to the drawing board, show them the objection handler, rehearse it, and get in action. And then you mentioned the most important thing, Valerie, make sure it happens in practice. Like
yes.
That's how you close the loop. You don't close it when you're rehearsing it and everything seems okay. That's not there. You're not there yet. It's when you see it in practice. It's when you see it in practice that they can actually respond. It might not go perfect the first time, but they're at least identifying, they can think in the moment a little bit on their feet and go, oh, that's the same objection I got yesterday. This objection, when I gave you, they're getting that every day, just so you know. There's no ISAs not hearing that in some shape or form every single day. So, okay, I'm getting it again. I'm going to react the way Valerie taught me to. Let me go this way, right? So, and then you gotta hear it. Got to hear it in practice. And then I think the loop is now closed. Okay, great. Now we've gone full circle. This is what you want. This is what you want to see. I love that. That's a great framework.
For sure.
Identify, or even ask them, role play, verify, right?
Yeah. And also it could be an open question, like, what do you think? Or something that I apply as well. Tell me 2 things you liked about your call and 2 things that you think you could have done different. That also works out.
Balancing out the thing. How important is that? That's a great question. How important is it to balance out the feedback with both negative and positive feedback? What do you think about that? Does that ever cross your mind, or you're not really, that doesn't really matter to you?
Yeah, it crosses my mind all the time for sure when I'm giving feedback. But I think it's really important, depending the scenario, of course. But if you see that your ISA is doing great, I think it's also good to not just throw the points of improvement, but to also let them know that they're doing great. Like, hey, you're doing great. Most of the call was good. We just need to work on these things, and I'm gonna help you out with that. So don't worry, we got this, right? Which from my training, that's the sandwich rule. The sandwich rule, which is the good feedback. Then you throw a little bit of the things that you want the ISA to change, and then you end it also with good feedback. Like, hey, okay, we got this, let's keep it up. And it just helps them to not receive the feedback in a way of, it's bad. Because for the ISAs, that's how they see it. When they talk about QA or when they hear my name, it's like, oh my God, Valley's going to tell us, the bad feedback. I always tell them, like, it's not bad feedback.
And to give people some context, I think Valerie, you if anything, you've had to struggle with kind of, softening up some of that feedback sometimes, right? Because, you kind of had a reputation for, hey, you were very direct with that feedback, very, very type A, hey, let's go, let's fix it now. But it definitely, you've grown on that. You've done much better with that. And I like that approach, that sandwich approach, right? Because nothing's ever 100% good or 100% bad. I mean, nothing is ever that way, right? People are trying. They're trying. They really are. Even if they don't have the talent for it, when someone gives a lot of effort, I go, you know what? Good for you. That's a really good effort, right? You're really trying. This is what you need to do better. Like, it's both. You're trying. You're putting a lot of effort in. We're missing these things. Both are true, right? Why can't you tell them both? I like that kind of sandwich approach, because you want to get them. The whole goal here, the trick is, how do you help them get where they want to go? You both want to go there, right? You both want to get there. You want good performance. You want good results. It's this whole, how do you influence people? How do you persuade people? How do you get them to come along to where they ultimately want to go, It's not always that easy, right? It's not 100% easy.
It takes time for sure. And also, I think that's, for me, the most important thing at first when I meet my team with someone new. I'll let them know what's my goal, for them in this training. Be direct on what you want and what you expect. What are your expectations, your goals? I think that's also something that sometimes even, I think the ISAs want. Like, hey, what's the goal here? Not to of course it's important, the training, and to get right to it, but also let them know right off the bat what you are expecting, and what are your expectations, what are your goals, what are you going to work on. Have a plan of the training, and let them know, so that way you can also avoid the I didn't know about this, or you didn't tell me about this, or I'm not sure what you want, because sometimes that's ISAs that could go with that feedback, oh, well, I didn't know you want this type of call, or I didn't know you were expecting me to be, this and that. So I think it's also important, the first conversation, to set goals and expectations, and be, I don't think there's nothing wrong for agents to be straightforward also with the ISAs and tell them, what, this is my goal, this is how many, appointments I want, but we're going to work through it and give you feedback and support you, give them that message that we're a team, and that's where we're trying to head at. So I don't think there's nothing wrong with that, for sure.
Absolutely. And given that goal, I also call it, like, what's the standard? What is the standard for this job, right? And when they start training, also make peace with the fact that they're not going to be there. They're not going to be probably anywhere close to the standard when they're starting out. But you want to get them there, and you want to maintain them at high performance. But you got to be clear with standards. Valerie, you have no idea how many agents, I think, struggle with the performance of their ISAs because they have no standards. They have no standards, right? And the standards aren't clear. Like, what's the goal? Hey, how many calls should my ISA be making? And they've been calling for a month. How many contacts should they be doing? A month in, a month later, they've been calling for a whole month. Well, I mean, this is the number, but does your ISA have any idea about this? And when I encounter those issues, I tell them the first thing I'm gonna do is got to turn around and have a really good talk with your ISA, saying this is what I expect, right? Every single week. And start simple on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. I expect you to put in the time, put in the calls, and then let's see what we can get out of that, right? But at the very bare minimum, like table stakes, bare minimum, you're putting in the time, you're making the calls you need to make. Out of those calls come a certain number of contacts, right? Conversation. For sure. Out of your training and experience and objection handling and your ability to hold a conversation, some of those conversations will turn into converted leads, right? Conversions. So where is your problem? I always focus on those things. I'm really stuck on that model. Like, usually the problem is in one of those three steps. You're not putting in the time, hence you're not making the calls. You're putting in the time, making the calls, no one's picking up. That's another problem you're going to solve. That's not necessarily an ISA issue you got to fix. And if your calls are in line, your contacts are in line, and the results just not there, the ISA is not executing the way they should execute, right? That might be an ISA issue, a scripting issue, an objection handling issue that you have to address. But you have to start with being very clear I love doing this from the very start. What's the standard we're going to set for this team, right? Where do we expect us to be? Like you said, what's the goal? What's your goal? And you said when the first time you meet a new teammate that's working for you, you say, this is my goal. Okay. This is what I want to accomplish out of this, right? You have a goal. You have one, right? You can bring your own too.
What do you want?
What do you want out of this relationship?
I want to grow. I want to know more about, more training. I want to be the best on my position. I always ask them, what's your goal? Well, I expect also from you your help because I'm new to this, and they open up. And I think that's why it's really important that first talk, setting those goals and also adding quality to it. I think that's helps you a lot with the feedback, knowing that they are going to go through the calls, knowing that they are going to receive feedback, knowing that they are going to get, to review them. And that helps a lot as well, because they already have it in mind. It's nothing strange. So when you ask them like, hey, can we meet? It's not like, like, why are we going to meet? And sometimes they even like, oh my God, my agent just texted me. I don't know if it's something wrong. They always have this, bad idea right away, and sometimes it's not even about that, and sometimes it's just to congratulate them or tell them ask them how everything's going. So yeah, for sure, I think that first talk is really, really important for sure in setting those goals.
I do, and it sets the tone. It can set the tone, and also the habit of like providing. It doesn't have to always be like a scheduled meeting, feedback meeting. It can be like a daily call review. It can be daily feedback session. Get in. My recommendation is always get into the habit of that. Get into that as the ISA progresses. Doesn't have to be every day. It can be once a week, right? It can be even maybe once every couple of weeks. Again, depending on the situation. I give feedback to a ISA that has been in that role more than a year, very differently than I give to one that's been in the role a week, right? It's
Yeah.
a very different process, a very different expectation. The person that's been there a week, I'm just trying to motivate them and to get them to keep going. And you're going to get better. Like, hang in there. Yes, you suck. It's a terrible call. But guess what? Everyone starts right there. You're like a baby trying to stand up and walk, right? Because they're going to fall flat on their face a few times. That's normal. You don't berate the baby, like kick them around and just tease them and humiliate them, right?
Yeah.
We don't do that. We encourage them.
I think even using ourselves like examples. For example, with me, sometimes when I really have like a hard time with an ISA because they just don't know how or they don't understand, I always tell them, you know, I trained as an ISA as well. You know, I get where you're coming from.
You pull the kind of,
you know, I put those examples as well.
Play that card. You play that card.
Yeah, that helps. You know, just to have something in common for them to open up a little bit and have empathy towards them, and that also helps with feedbacks, you know, setting examples. And I think everybody went through that situation when we started cold calling. We always, you know, where it sounded robotic. We didn't know how to apply certain things, but that's how we grew, and that's how we grow, because we received the feedback and we changed things. And that's how I always tell them, you know, I've been here 6 years, and you know, when I started in Power ISA, I didn't know nothing about real estate or QA or anything. You know, and now I think I'm really good at handling feedback. So, you know, that's how we get there with feedback. So, you know, keep it up. And they always take it when I put, you know, examples like that, they always like return that empathy, like, okay, I got it. You know, we got this. I'm gonna try my best. So I think that's also a good tip for sure. Using examples.
And last question, so we can wrap this up.
Yeah.
What a lot of people ask this question. They ask it in a lot of different ways, but I would sum it up as this: how do you tell when someone, you know, needs a lot of feedback, and it's like, you know what, it's one too many times the same thing over and over and over and over again, right? How do you deal with someone that's kind of stuck in that rut? I mean, and I think that's a really challenging, you know, situation to deal with. Yeah. I mean, you know, what have you done? Have you dealt with that in your experience, Valerie? What recommendation would you give? And I'll give some as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think not specifically with an ISA, but I think mostly like my team. You know, when I had this person that, you know, I would point out what was not working out and maybe things that she should change, and it would never change. And then I would, you know, have another one-on-one, same thing, and then another one-on-one and same thing. And that's where I would be like, you know, what's going on here? Because I'm being clear.
There's something going on. There's an echo in this room.
Yeah.
What's going on?
And something that I applied as well was asking them if they understand or if they could tell me what I'm looking for to change here, just to see if they really understand what I'm looking for, or if they actually are hearing me, you know, saying these things. And sometimes they're like, oh, well, what I understood is this. And it's something, sometimes it's completely different from what I'm trying to say. And I always, you know, be really, in our company, be really strict on that and send even an email, you know, with a reminder of what I need for the next, you know, one-on-one. And I had that challenge for quite some time. You know, I think it was like a really hard month or two.
It's not easy. It's not easy. But, you know,
it's complicated.
It's
for
not
sure.
easy to deal with.
Yeah, it's complicated for sure. But I do feel like it gets to a point, like, for me specifically, my team, it's like, or after a month, I don't see any change. We have to make it happen. If it doesn't happen, you know, that's an issue now, because I've already been a month, you know, giving this feedback. And it's fair to say, you know, like, hey, not a, you know, like a serious talk sometimes, and be like, hey, you know, I've been asking this for a few weeks now. I have it now in email. I've sent it to you a couple times and I still don't see any change. So you tell me, you know, what's going on, or why do you feel like we're not getting anywhere with this feedback? And sometimes they're honest. You know, there's people that are really honest, and they're like, well,
got me.
I haven't thought about it really, or I haven't applied it. Okay, but you know, I really need this. I need this so we can move forward. Because, you know, if not, we're not going to move on to, you know, just going straight forward with our project. We're not going to, no, it's not going to happen. So it's been hard for sure. It's never easy, like a situation like that, where you feel that you're not being heard. I think that's the perspective sometimes that agents can get for these type of situations. Like, I'm telling them, but they don't seem to understand. So I would ask them, I would ask the ISA, okay, so do you understand, or can you repeat, you know, what are we trying to fix here, or what are we trying to change, just to see first if they understand that. And if not, well, that gives you that's a major red flag for me, if they get it after a few
100%. Yeah. And I once heard this way to describe it. When you ask someone to do something or tell them to do something and it doesn't happen, it's usually either because they don't know how to do it. That's a possibility. They're not sure how to do it. They're not really sure how to do it the right way, or they might not be motivated to do it the right way, right? Yeah. It could be an issue with motivation. If the instructions are clear, if the task at hand is clear, but it's still not happening, it might be not that they don't know how to do it, they know how to do it. So it's a motivational issue, right? Yeah, maybe something else going on, right? So I always want to distinguish the kind of issue we're talking about. Is it a skills issue? They're lacking a skill, practice, polish, sharpening the knife. They're not good at that skill yet. That's understandable. But sometimes the skill is perfectly well understood. They get it. There's nothing they don't know. So they know how to do what they're failing at. How do you get them to succeed? Yeah. Is an even better question.
And you know what? I think the first thing that we mentioned about, you know, telling them what they need to change and also showing them and putting it in practice avoids that. To see, you know, if it's the skills, because obviously
feedback, like demonstrate the skill. You're right. With that feedback framework, it's like demonstrate the skill for me, please, like right here, right now. Let's go.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's how you could, you know, identify avoid that of the skills, or if it's more of a motivation thing. And if you're already applying, you know, these tips of, you know, like, okay, this is what we need to change, let me show you how to do it, and then let's do a role play you doing it. I think you can you know, identify right away, okay, maybe it's motivation because I'm already applying this feedback and we're already practicing. So I don't think it would be more to skills. I think it would be more to motivation. I think that's where you sit down with the ISA and, you know, ask them, how is everything going? How do you feel, you know, with this month of training? So I think if applying those tips would help you identify for sure, like which one is it in those cases for sure.
I love it. Awesome. Valerie, thank you so much. You've been very generous with your time. Thanks a bunch. And I hope to see you here again in the future. You're always welcome to come back here in the Facebook group here for Tuesday Topics. All right. Thank you so much. I will see you on the next one. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.